Hi.
Hi, hello. I think I'm the first person to join. Hmm.
You remember जब मैं कैंटीन में
Chup na.
Hi all, just give us a few seconds.
तो मैं लैपटॉप देना
Hi.
Hi. Akhil, you're here? Aditi, could you transfer the host back to me?
trying
Can you transfer the host back to me? That was an mistake. Just click on my name, right click or double click.
yeah go
Thank you.
you are the oh.
People are still joining. In the meantime, there's quite a lot of there's 21 participants here. Let's say hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi guys.
I'm sorry to Guna.
Hello.
Hi guys.
While
Hi Akshay. Hi Steven. Hi Tushara. So many faces.
Hey.
I'm just running through
So
all
good to see you guys. Seems like we've
Oh,
not seen
Akshay is
faces for so long.
I can see Akshay.
Yeah.
right, can we wait like maybe just a few seconds? I mean minutes, and then start.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Till then, for the people who don't know Akhil and Aditi or
Yeah.
the Ladies Compartment, maybe we can just introduce ourselves.
Avantika, why don't you start?
Hi, my name is Avantika Mehta. I run the Ladies Compartment, which is a website and Instagram page which has no clear goals. We're just trying to be funny and have a weird sense of humor. In my day job, I'm a journalist. And I started the Ladies Compartment mainly because I cover some depressing news all the time. And I wanted some place where I could just sort of go laugh and not be trolled. And then it sort of caught on, and now here we are with Akhil Katyal and Aditi, and people I'd only read about in the newspapers, so it's kind of cool. Akhil, do you want to take it now?
Yeah, I mean, just wanted to say welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Right now, we are here as editors of this volume, which we've had like just the privilege to be associated with, the world that belongs to us. And I'm a poet who's based in Delhi. I'm originally from Lucknow and Bareilly. I've been living in Delhi for ages and have been part of queer conversations and queer groups in the city for a while. So, and I teach. That's what gets the grub on the table. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Handing it off to Aditi.
Guys, hi, I'm Aditi. I'm a poet and an artist based out of Delhi. I don't know where am I from originally, but I've been living in Delhi for the last 10, 20 years now. How I got involved with this is that I've been organizing a lot of spoken word events for young adults, for college students, and somehow a lot of them identify a collective called Bring Back the Poets, which so bit by bit, I think I just started getting associated with queer poetry, with spoken word, with this small field of activism that we're trying to do with literature and with public reading. And then, yeah, with this, I think Akhil reached out to me one day and we just thought this might be an interesting idea. And that was 2 years ago. And here we are now. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to what you guys think, what you're feeling. Yeah.
The video keeps getting switched from profile. Hi, Autumn. That's because whoever's speaking, that person's video will come on. What you can do is you can lock your screen.
And we also, folks who aren't speaking at any given point of time,
Yeah,
mute their audios.
I'm admitting everybody and trying to mute them. There we go. Right, so I've muted everyone except myself, which feels terrible. And Aditi and Akhil, yeah, you guys can unmute yourselves, but till then this will be a little. It's 6:10. Should we start?
Yeah, let's start.
So we're here to discuss The World Belongs to Us, which is a compilation of really, really good queer-centric poetry, which was edited by Akhil and Aditi. Like they said, the idea started 2 years ago. Can you guys tell us a little bit about how you came together to come up with a compilation? What was the story behind even the idea of a compilation? You're both poets.
Aditi, do you want to go ahead?
Well, I think it should begin with you because you reached out, you reached out to me. So what's the story before that?
What's the story?
Actually, it's really long back, and one of the beefs that a lot of us and our contributors have had is that why the hell has this book taken so long? It's actually from the date of inception, like from the date of first conversations till today, it must be more than 2 years. So it has taken a while. And I think a lot of it has to do with two sets of people make this volume. One is just the amazing sort of contributors that we have from many different countries and writing in many different languages. But also at the starting point is this like amazing commissioning editor called Shohini Basar. Mm-hmm. And I think she is the one who thought this up and one day just gave me a call saying, it's been a while since so many anthologies which have attempted queer literature. It's been a while, and also there might not be volumes which are dedicated particularly to queer poetry. And so she thought of a bunch of reasons why she thought that queer poetry as an anthology for South Asia might be needed at this time. And I agreed with several of those reasons, and so just got on board. Mm-hmm. And then just thinking of the ambition and the scale of the task, I thought, there is someone else who needs to come on board. And another queer poet who I knew and respected in the city was Aditi Angiras. So I reached her, and thankfully, and I think I made a call in an auto and just spoke to her briefly, and she agreed. So I'll let her take on from
That's
there.
a business deal in Delhi, dude. You call it an auto.
Yeah.
That's as good as gold. Aditi, what happened when Akhil called you? Could you hear it?
Yeah, I think I was very excited to think about this because what happened afterwards was just 2 years of a lot a lot of things. We'll just talk about that in the coming minutes. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that was February 2018 when we sort of trekked to Noida, and this began. And in the beginning, it seemed like we had enough of an idea what we wanted to do with it, what we did not want to do with it. There was some personal alignment between the both of us about the kind of politics we wanted this to have, and
Your video is breaking up a little bit.
together. So that I don't know why not have one. So, but yeah, we'll talk about what happened in the 2 years. The call went out and the editing began. Then reaching out. So there are different things. We've written about it in the introduction as well. For everybody else would want to read about this in detail. So what chronicles of putting this together are there in the introduction.
I think the chronicles of putting it together are almost as complicated as sort of the topic that you guys were trying to tackle. I mean, queerness in itself is a very broad spectrum, and there's always sort of a worry that are you being inclusive, intentionally or unintentionally? How did you guys handle that? And what sort of experiences did you draw from editing this and reading so many different submissions? And why did you pick the ones you picked? Maybe you will go on to read some of them now.
That's a really big question. So I just want to think about, actually, on paper, Aditi and I are the editors of this volume, but actually a host of folks just got involved from the get-go. So, all that we had done with Shohini, Aditi and I, we sort of put together this call in which we tried to uh, think about as broad an ambit of queerness as is possible in South Asia. And we thought half our task is done, and we sort of put that call out. And within seconds, actually, people's participation started. So there was an activist who talked about how the category of asexuals was missing from that list. There was Ramki from Chennai who mentioned that actually the list of indigenous Métis trans identities like Nupi Manvi and Nupa Manva were missing from the list. There were folks who said, can allies write? There were folks who said, can pansexuals write? There was a Tamil friend who said, you're not added the category of Terunangai. So there is a way in which we immediately, like, if we held any kind of confidence regarding the project, it took a rightful beating at that moment. And I think people also, both with skepticism but also with encouragement, gave us that help and they shared it. I mean, they took it to their lovers, to their friends, to their acquaintances, to people who they thought we should reach out to. And there were a host of folks. There was G. Semilar, there was Karthik Bittu, there was Ramki, there was Santa Kurai, there was Chandani. There were so many people who sort of just helped us reach out to more and more people, not just in India, but in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, and in the diaspora. So that was the crazy thing. And now, as the book stands, it has more than 100 poets and contributors.
It took me by shock when I opened it.
And two poets in Delhi couldn't have managed it. So, it was actually a bunch of folks who came together and rallied behind a project like this. Aditi, what do you think? If she's here. I can't see her any longer.
She's here.
Yeah, I think when we put the So when we put the call together and we posted, we sent that out. That's when we also, we were already considering that it needs to reach out a lot more. It needs to be translated. Could only be in so many languages. We could only get so much done. But I think that moment also helped us, sort of discuss that maybe the book itself also needs to include a lot more than just English. And so the call for submissions actually got us to a point where we thought that, okay, we need to, maybe we were not thinking about it because we were not thinking about a lot of things, but we were just going with how things were coming to us and how people were teaching us to unlearn a lot of things. Yeah. So that's when we figured out, and the more we were thinking and the more we spoke to people, and I think the more we were wondering how is this going to fit under 300 pages, because this is not impossible. So if we had taken maybe 5 years, this would be different. So we did 2 years, and this is what it looks like.
I mean, it can always be a world that belongs to us too.
Yeah.
The world that we gave away.
And the thing about this...
Yeah, we have referred to future. Yeah, go on.
I did see that. That's what I got the idea of a sequel from. Akhil, you were saying?
No, actually, and so what has happened is then obviously this world that belongs to us is manifold, like it's multiple, and it has all kinds of folks who are often in solidarity with each other and often rightfully so at loggerheads with each other.
Correct. I mean, that's what I loved about all the poems is when they do in themselves, all 100 of them, give you facets of everybody's little words. They're all very intimate poems. As you guys will all see when Akhil, Aditi and everyone reads.
And today, in fact, we are so happy that, and I'm sure they might have already joined, that Zulfikar and Santa, who are contributors to the volume, will actually join us. Zulfikar is a visual and performance artist of Pakistani, Lebanese and Iranian origin. Santa is a Nupi Manvi activist from Manipur. So they'll be joining us later on in this conversation. And, one day Aditi and I just sat down and with the kind of poems once that all poured in, and we were like, this is mind-boggling, because what all were the poems about and what all forms were they written in? They were about haircuts. There's more than one poem about haircuts.
Yeah.
There were difficult ties with family.
Yeah.
There was loss with loved ones. There was experience of alienation with other queer people or embrace and solidarity with them. There was love of clothes and cities and cruising places. And one of the things which sort of jumped out at me was also there was this, more than 3 poets have actually written about genderedness of death rituals.
Yeah.
But there's a moment of cremation. There's a way in which it makes a demand in a very gendered manner on loved ones. And then it continued. I mean, whether law, music, whether difficulty of relationship, the caste-bound nature of relationships, whether social or personal. So it just it kept on expanding. And that's the template of queerness, if you can call it a template.
Broad. I mean, yeah, you're right. Was there any point at which, I know it happens to me when I'm looking at a topic which just gets larger and larger and larger. Was there any point where you guys sort of thought, oh my God, we've written off more than we can chew, or there's no way that we can do this justice? I know all of us go through that. Just smiling, so I think maybe you did go through that.
Aditi?
Oh, that was very pointed. Aditi is really good.
You'll have to come again. I lost you a little bit towards the end.
We're saying that, when you take up a project...
Avandia, could you come back?
When you take up a project like this and the scope keeps expanding, after a while you're like Akhil said earlier, your confidence did take a beating when people were coming forward and say, you've left this out. But even beyond that, after a while, with so many submissions, you can sort of get like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I don't think we can do justice to it. When does
we are still, it doesn't. I sent like crying smiley in the morning to Akhil. So it doesn't stop, I think.
That was actually the first.
I'm still overwhelmed.
I think Zulfikar's right.
That's what I sent him in the morning.
Oh.
So I think it's.
Does anyone at this point want to ask any questions of Akhil and Aditi, or have something? You just send it to me and I'll read it out loud. Or as they're sending it, we can stopping is not an option. It's like stop to see if you could reach it.
We could also.
Yeah, go on.
If you want, we could Aditi and I, or we could Aditi and I could read a poem, or once we confirm when Santa and Zulfikar have joined, then we can play their videos as well.
I think Zulfikar has joined.
I think Santa's already Santa was already here. Santa is here, I think. The Lenovo link is her, as I think.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Santa's there.
So,
I'm here. I'm
yeah,
here.
so I think
Hi,
Santa
Santa.
is here.
How are you?
Yeah. Hi,
Good,
Santa.
good, good. Yeah, happy to see everyone.
We're
Same
happy
here.
to
Happy
see
to see
you. I love classes. Sorry, I know this is not the time.
Same,
So,
yeah.
should we start with a reading? Akhil,
Maybe,
or do you want to introduce?
yeah. So because Santa is already here, let's start with her poem. Santa, it was just, it's an absolute privilege to include her poem. She's given us 2 poems. She's been generous with 2 poems. And Santa Khurai is a Nupi Manbi activist, a poet from Manipur. Um, uh, I've now known her for about 2 years because that's how long it has taken for this book to come up. So what we'll do now is, Santa, with your permission, Avantika can play the video of her poem, and then maybe we can have a small conversation about your work. Does that sound good?
It's such a beautiful poem, Santa.
Yeah. We can go with it.
All right, so I'm just starting now.
Hello, my name is Santa Khurai, and I'm from
Sorry,
Manipur.
guys.
I'm a transgender activist, artist, and a writer. I belong to one indigenous community called Meitei in Manipur. Nupi Manbi.
Sorry,
I call myself as Nupi Manbi, which can be translated as transgender women in English. I've contributed 2 poems in a queer anthology, which is hello, my name is Santa Khurai, and I'm from Manipur. I'm a transgender activist, artist, and a writer. I belong to one indigenous community called Meitei in Manipur. Nupi Manbi. I call myself as Nupi Manbi, which can be translated as transgender women in English. I've contributed 2 poems in a queer anthology, which has been published by Harper Collins. The name of the book is The World Belongs to Us. This anthology is the first of its kind in the entire South Asia region. As a part of introducing all the contributors, I've also taken this opportunity to introduce myself by reading out 1 poem out of the 2 which has been selected for this anthology. The poems are My Father and the Nupi Manbi Thaban. So I'll be reading My Father for this introduction. My hand wrapped around his finger, he taught me to walk. With pride, flaunted me to the world, shared his future with me with a dream I had, reinstated his position. I as a father and he as a grandfather, the wind of change visited and disturbed the hopes, dreams, and belief. My dolls provoking him. The female vocal cord insulted the innocent fatherhood. My teacher who taught me the ways of the world abandoned me without sympathy. My temperament transformed him into a demon. But I was neither a traitor nor a liar. The more the truth provoked him, the more he strove to impose the father's belief which my tender mind could ever raise. My heart throbbed at the scene, the torn dolls, the broken casket, the harsh warning voice. Demarcation of man and women forced the effeminate to soldier manly responsibility. Dig, cultivate, harvest, and man fences. Crockily my father roared out his wishes, bamboo baton and the hard palm welcoming me. My lamentation and wails went unheard. All and sundry commanded dreadfully, abnormal, homo, black sheep, and bad omen. These memories of my childhood created the demon in me, mind filled with hatred, disgust, and revenge. Even as I found irresistible those of my same kind, turned and took him away from my life. The gray hair, missing tooth, and weakened body, he lay now on a white lion cloth that matched his height, nose fitted with 2 small cotton balls, breathless, lifeless. He lay in the middle of the courtyard, kids and kin forlornly mourn for the death. In the midst, this kind-hearted humankind counseled me to wear faison. Hearing it, I felt as if I was bathing in a pond filled to the brim with tilaikumbi, the slim bond of love for my father, the pangs of losing him. Everything vanished in a moment, starting looking for exit. The humankind compelled me to refrain from the angst. Phrase wall was built between the dead and my gender. It was burned at the crematorium, the place where many women too were consigned to fire after they died. There he went thus, leaving no legacy of his own gender, without leaving behind a separate cremation ground for men. Thank you.
Hello?
Thank you so much, Santa. Can you hear me?
Santa, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear everybody.
Santa, actually one of the things that it's a very strong poem and it was very moving, and especially both when you hear it, but also when you read it. One of the things that I wanted to tell you was that, this, like the relationship with the father has strangely appeared in many poems. It's come in Ifti Naseem's poem, who is a Pakistani poet. It's come in Leah Samarasena's poem, who's a Sri Lankan American poet, and it's come in yours. Could you tell us the story behind this poem? The poem ends with this very difficult moment of cremation. So how many years after such an event did you write this poem? What was it like to revisit this memory? There's this very strong and beautiful line. You said that a fresh wall was built between the dead and my gender. So I was just thinking, what if you go back to that moment and tell us about that experience, and how difficult it is to write about family.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It was the most painful moment in my life because my father was very cruel to me. But the good thing, what I saw from my father was he insisted me to continue my education. So that's the most beautiful part of my father. But actually, I even when I started coming out as a girl, we had stopped calling each other. Even I did not call him Pabung, meaning father in my Talon, because my father loves me. I know that, but actually he was cruel to me. That was a reaction coming from the society, and my father was getting this influence that I was the eldest son of him, of my parent, and then I turn out to be a girl, meaning like in a peripatriarchal society like Manipur, it's very difficult for a father to see the scene of a boy who wanted to become a girl. So that was all that things happens, and it was a very my father passed away in 2000 2007 at somewhere there. I've forgotten the actual year. And when he died, they called me. I was running my beauty parlor during those days, and they called me, and I rushed to the house, and then I saw my father laying his dead body in the middle of the courtyard, and there were also ritual conducting by the priest. And when I show my father that body, I was shocked. But actually, I did not have that much pain of losing a father. It was the kind of feeling that I have lost somebody, a very, very general kind of feeling I got when I saw him. And because I was very hard that time. I was very hard, and people who were doing the ritual, they were asking me to perform certain ritual which was necessary to be conducted by the eldest son, but I refused because I told them that I'll be wearing fanek meaning the traditional women's attire, and they again forced me to wear faizom meaning that male attire, the white traditional male attire. I said, no, I can't do that. If you are forcing me to wear faizom, then I'm not going to do the ritual. I'm not going to join the ritual. And then everybody was very much, come up with certain argument, and then was telling me that I'm naughty, and then I'm not following my family's word. But actually, I stand strong, and I did not follow what people told me. And like after that, I just came out from home. I left the place. um, I left the place and uh, I went to a friend's place just to uh, take rest sometimes there. And my friend was asking me what happened, and
Yeah.
I told her that my father is dead, but the people forced me to wear faizong, which I cannot. And then my friend was also telling me that this is the end of your father, then you should follow the societal press. I said, no, why should I? I'm a girl. So like it was this controversy that was going on that time. And then I started drinking, and I was full drunk that night. And it was very painful. I felt the pain of losing my father, but at the same time, how insensible people are. They were just, without knowing my intensity, without my like intention, they were forcing me to wear what I don't want. So that was a kind of very, very huge pressure to me. And on the other hand, I had this pain of losing my father. So that was a whole story. And then in that night, I woke up. I was not able to sleep the entire night. And then in the middle of the night, I just took a piece of paper and started writing my father.
Also, it was
So
that night itself.
yeah, it was that night I wrote this poem. And that happens. And then writing is my passion, and it's not only my passion, but actually it's a kind of therapy for me. I was the
Yeah.
only person who came out openly as a girl in Manipur in my day. So like I constantly receive backlashes, bullied, verbal abuse from people. So I had a very pathetic life. So what I did that time was I just take a piece of paper and then writing down everything. So that was how I was able to maintain diary. And this first book, which is coming out uh, uh, which is coming out as my second book, the collection of my memoirs, which is being published by Speaking Tiger. This all are also written in the form of diary. And then later on, I have recollected all the narratives and then making it, giving it more flesh to the story. So yeah, that was how the story was born. And yeah, it was like, for a person like me who cannot say no to people and then who cannot betray people, even though my father was totally rejected against me, I still love my father because he was a part of me. Because he was the person who taught me everything. He was a very poor person. He runs a vehicle workshop, which was able to earn like 100 rupees during those days, but it was a very high value. And he concentrated on me, on my education, by keeping the issues of my girliness and then my trans identity aside. So he was a very beautiful person, but actually that conflict was not me and between my father and me, but that conflict was between my identity and my father, that
Yeah.
was created by the society. So I felt I felt that this conflict, this dynamic, this misunderstanding should be addressed. And then the only possible way out for me to tell this story is through writing. So I wrote this poem.
No, and also because it's such a difficult subject matter, but it's father, and the second, it's a moment of death. And one of the things which absolutely like I gave me goosebumps was that this moment of cremation, and two other poets have also the death ritual. Two other poets, Vijay Raja Mallika in Malayalam and Chandni in Kannada, have also dealt with this moment, because there's something about this moment where it's a watershed, it's a point of no return.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
always captured it very well.
I got that inspiration. I got that inspiration because like on the no no on the same day, I follow the ritual. People went to the river bank to burn my father's dead body, and then I saw my father's was burning on the same common crematorium ground. crematorium place. And then I started asking why there is no separate crematorium for my father, because he was a man. And then if he was very much strict about his masculinity, then why did not the society provide a separate cremation ground for men and women? So that question came to my mind, and then I reflected that on the poem.
Santa, thank you so much. Only for the reason of time limitation, I'll hand it over to Aditi, who will introduce Zulfikar. Thank you so much for this.
Okay.
Please remain with us through the conversation.
Sandra, it was just such a beautiful poem and a really complex subject. You know, this sort of love-hate relationship a lot of us have with our parents. I just wanted to thank you. Aditi, do you want to take it on to introduce Zulfikar, and I'll write up the lovely poem?
Yeah. So, like Akhil already said, that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto is a visual and performance artist and also curator of mixed image. And in the national find how they do queerness and of being queer and Islam. I'm also goes to do is very powerful. I will pick up.
Let me play Zulfikar's lovely video.
Hello, my name is Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and I'm reading for you today a poem I wrote titled The New Leader, which is being included in the South Asia Queer Anthology. The New Leader. I've heard he likes cats and dogs. That must mean he has a kind heart. When she smiles, it feels oh so genuine. They have a good relationship with India. An upside to this may mean we'll have peace. They have a military background. So does that mean war? In which case, we need to raise the walls of our house, put in a reinforced gate, make sure our passports are up to date, renew our visas. Oh, but you can't do that anymore. So get new visas. He's quite strict, which is bad for some, bad for the bad guys. He'll lock them up real quick. Harsher punishments mean less crime. Bullshit. Our drawing rooms need to become meeting spaces. If not our drawing rooms, our bedrooms. If not our bedrooms, and those dingy alleyways you meet your lovers in for a quick blowjob and a cock up the ass. Hill Park, Frere Hall Gardens, that empty spot on Clifton Beach. You name it, Janu. Turn your nonverbal cruising into verbal resistance. Make every conversation into an insinuation of revolution. Every wink a portal into a new world order. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Zulfikar is Zulfikar here?
No, I think it's really early morning. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning there. So he did say that he'll try and join in, but he might have missed the alarm. Yeah. Akhil, I think you're on mute.
Though. Especially the line with the drawing rooms are bedrooms and the bedrooms are dingy spaces. It's lovely. What made you pick that poem, Aditi, Akhil?
I think for us, we were reading it from various lenses, and I think for the kind of politics that I think it was talking about, and what we could read in the background, we could read some UK there, we could read some Pakistan in there, and just that complication, I think what did that really mean? I think it was very exciting, very very exciting. I think in what we can say, maybe people would read controversy, people read a lot of provocation, people read a lot of opinion, a lot of politics into everything that I think all of us are writing. But I think for me it was that excitement, and I think just the last line of this new world order.
Mm-hmm.
This was way before we figured out what the name of the book was going to be, but that line is best. So for me, it was all of these things, which was very exciting.
There's this, the way Zulfikar's poem ends, it's
Mm-hmm.
like we must create more meeting spaces where people who are different than each other, who don't know each other, can come and meet, who otherwise wouldn't meet in conventional situations, would come and meet. And he said, if your drawing rooms are not those situations, then your bedroom must be, and if your bedrooms are not those situations, then your the dingy alleys
And those
where you,
become places.
yes, they must. And I think that idea that, that he holds on to, and several people have the reason to give up on, but they hold on to this kind of potential of desire, that it will and it must cross boundaries. And, those boundaries which have been placed by society, or those boundaries which must have been placed by national borders. And the way Zulfikar, they speak of the new leader, I think both Pakistan and India there was just immense amount of resonance about what leaders are capable of, and what kind of lives and close off for people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think worldwide. The line that you picked up on is the same line that blew my mind. And I love the idea that, like you call it desire. I was thinking connection. That there's just people will always look for a connection. Like it's sort of even in this time that we're in, where Akhil and I live like 5 kilometers from each other, but this is where we say hi, and we're looking for a connection across a Zoom call. It really resonates, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the thing about a volume like this was actually there is, to be honest, like Aditi and I like belong to a social circuit which is 2 inches of ivory. Like, and the book, what it did is it blew it open, it expanded it took it in different directions, which otherwise in the dry run of life, like, one wouldn't have gone to. And I think both the anthology is also trying to bring folks together who otherwise are not brought together. Often there might be reasons of language, there might be reasons of national borders, there might be all forms of social reasons. And I think a whole lot of people who are our contributors in this book, they helped in making this possible. In fact, in the book is officially getting launched on the 22nd. And, in a host of things, events and writings that Aditi and I and several other contributors will be engaged in, we'll be sharing more and more of their work. Like, you heard Santa and Zulfi today, and there'll be more contributors which we'll get to hear, because they are the ones who make up this volume. We are the occasion which sort of brought them together. Aditi?
I think we're also running a little short on time.
I think we're okay because Zoom gave us some sort of.
How many minutes do we have now?
I got a message from Zoom saying that they've given us a gift.
Yeah.
That we have no time limit on this. I want to apologize in advance, guys. My dogs have lost it.
Amazing.
I don't know what they think is happening. I'm going to mute me and Akhil. Yeah, I'm going to mute me and Akhil is going to read out Vikram Seth's poem. And you don't have to hear it.
Also, right after that, maybe we can ask if they have some things to say, question.
Yes.
So I'm going to read out one poem, which is actually, a lot of contributors also mentioned that it's one of their favorite poems. And I think it's strangely opposite today for the last few months. And I'm sure for the several months that will follow. It's a poem by Vikram Seth. It's called All You Who Sleep Tonight. All you who sleep tonight, far from the ones you love, no hands to left or right, and emptiness above, know that you aren't alone. The whole world shares your tears, some for 2 nights or one, and some for all their years. Know that you aren't alone, the whole world shares your tears, some for 2 nights or one, and some for all their years. And I think there is, so much of conversation in sort of mainstream LGBT groups or, within certain kinds of campaigns associates LGBT life as sadness to mirth, as loss to love, as it gets better. And there is a way in which actually this anthology has told us that no, we need to actually negotiate with melancholy, we need to negotiate with sadness, we need to negotiate with sense of hollowness and grief, which so many queer lives carry, and not just one kind of sort of English-speaking, cisgendered, gay body, which lends itself to a certain kind of celebration, though also not even that exclusively. And I think there's a way in which this Seth poem opens that world of grief for us, and it comes in poem after poem.
And I think, like, the one that Santa read, and this poem by Vikram Seth as well. How is it that we grapple with rituals? How is it that we grapple with things that are handed down to us? There is a very beautiful poem by Akhil as well, which is about old age, and that one also talks about how do we negotiate it?
How do we sort of move beyond this story
having,
where is just Anna?
living as couples? Yeah.
Akhil, why did you pick
So,
and not yours?
relationships with parents, relationship with rituals, relationship with a lot of things that are out there. Yeah.
Because he's a better poet. I mean, simple
I just
reason.
set you up for that one, didn't I? I was like, here, gold.
He's a better poet. I mean, there's no other reason there. Maybe if Aditi would like to read a poem, or folks have questions, maybe we can take those.
Guys, we can open it up for questions now. Just unmute and ask away.
Yeah, I think we can talk. Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. I think we have about 10 minutes left. So,
like whatever's on their mind regarding an anthology like this, and regarding.
or if you just want to ask if Akhil single. No, I'm just joking. I didn't mean to put him on the spot. I was just joking. Guys, please quickly before he comes here and kills me. Distract.
You are not very far, actually.
I know. Really taking a risk here.
So I had a question, if I could ask.
Yes, please.
Go ahead. I'm trying to see who's speaking. One second.
This is Alia. Hi, Akhil.
Hi, Alia.
Hi. I'm wondering, you guys talked about the kind of inclusivity you were trying to get earlier on. And when like contributors wrote to you, they said, oh, but you haven't included, this could be part of it and you might be missing this out. And I'm just curious, now that the anthology is done, are there some experiences, some voices that you are concerned you might have left out, or what do you wish you had included more of, or just how do you think about that?
I have a few things to say. Aditi, would you like to take it?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's a lot that we feel that we haven't been able to reach out to or bring in. Like we were really trying to reach out to communities in Nepal, and we've only been able to have one poet from there, and which just shows that in all of South Asia, this topic, I think, or this theme specifically is June now. In public spaces, it's very different. On social media, it's very different. On the media, it's very different. But when it actually is about putting your name out in a book, how many people are able to come forward, and how many people are we able to reach? Because we were also sending out the call only through, electronic medium. There's a lot that we couldn't do. There's a lot we couldn't reach out. So some of the voices, I would say, we couldn't bring in because we couldn't reach out to them. And yeah, that does stay with us. So yeah, okay.
Thanks for that question. Actually, that it's I mean, this volume has come at a moment of history, and actually there have been anthologies before it by Salim Kidwai, Ruth Vanita, Ashwini Sukthankar, Minal Hajratwala. There have been, so they've sort of paved the way for this, and so they've also made this possible. And for instance, but obviously this has taken a few steps, but there are 1,000 more steps to be taken. So for instance, there was this wonderful Tamil poet who had given their poem to us, and when they saw the contract and the terms on offer, they felt that for the longest time they've been trying to think about pay equality, thinking about how much people get paid for publishing, and this volume, our publisher said that this volume is more than 100 poets and translators, and they were giving rupees 1,000 per poem, and they're like, we want mainstream publishing to publish more and more queer folks or queer folks who don't usually get published by such publishers, but we are also having this other debate in which we can't give this permission, and they finally withheld that permission with us, and we respected that decision. But so there is a way in which some breakthroughs happened and other breakthroughs did not happen, and I think Aditi and I also bring certain possibilities and constraints to a volume like this. After all, the call for submissions went in only 7 to 8 languages, and we know South Asia is not
limited
to 7 to 8 languages, and so I think the way the call moved electronically through folks in 7 to 8 languages, it brought in, now we have a collection which has about, in more than 10 languages, and about 100 poets and translators. But at any given point of time, can that be exhaustive? I think the answer to that is very simply no. And hopefully anthologies in the future will also fill up those gaps.
Yes, I have a question on private chat from Aratrika. I'm really sorry, Aratrika. They're a research fellow, and the question is, how do we negotiate the concept of naming in language? In queer community, there are people who find refuge in naming, and some people who find refuge, who resisted in poetry and art and literature. Akhil, they're asking specifically for you, what is your take as a writer yourself about this? Negotiating?
That's actually a very good question. Can I also, though, before I answer that, actually the person who designed the beautiful, beautiful cover of the book is also here, Anirban. And I was thinking about actually Alia's question about, what gets included and what gets left out. And, especially thinking visually, like what must have been the conversation in their mind. I'm also very curious to know, because this is the first time actually we are face to face in a manner of speaking. So if Anirban, if you're hearing it, would you want to tell us the story behind the cover and what was the conversation in your head till you reached it? If there's a way we can share the cover, share screen of the cover, then that would be good.
I can, yes.
Anirban, can you hear us? Wait, maybe they're not here anymore.
Yeah, I see them, but everything's muted and shut, so I don't know where they are. Pardon?
Okay. I think that's all. Anyway, if they come back, so the question that has been asked, there is something about the genre of poetry. There is something about the genre of poetry which can both hold meaning, but which can also hold the dispersal of meaning, right? In fact, that which cannot be accommodated in a news report, that which cannot be accommodated in a novel, that which cannot be accommodated in long-form journalism, that which cannot be accommodated in the short story can be accommodated in poetry. There is a way in which lays its hook to the affective. There's a way it places itself not in how you cognize the world, but how the world feels to you. And I think that capacity of poetry, that potential within poetry, both resists meaning and embraces it. So, for instance, we have poems in which language splinters. We have poems in which the world doesn't make sense in only one language. We have poems in which you will see a devolution of words into gibberish. We have poems in which has to play with the visual form of the text rather than just the text. And I think all these are ways in which poetry, particularly as a genre, comes to terms with multiplicity of experiences of individuals. So I do think there's something specific and remarkable, like in its root sense, like it's worth remarking on the capacity of poetry as a genre, unlike other genres. Because queer life has been extensively written about in mainstream press in South Asia over the last few years, and often in very violent contexts and celebratory contexts. So whether it's in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and I think there is a way in which poetry steps back from the news event. It steps back from the news event and it takes stock of how did the event finally reach me at my doorstep. And I think that is done both by laying recourse to language, but also letting it go when it becomes a constraint. That's a beautiful question.
It was. I have another question for both of you from Akshay Khanna. Which Akshay Khanna?
No, I know this Akshay Khanna. They were not in Tal.
They would love to hear reflections on challenges of translations of idioms. As you guys said, you got several.
Could you repeat that?
They would love to hear your reflections on challenges of the translation of idioms.
So first of all, this is the Akshay Khanna is not the Bollywood guy. They're a remarkable scholar. They're a remarkable scholar of sexualness, of sexuality, and they're a researcher, anthropologist, wonderful thinker. Their work, in fact, Sexualness, can be read by with the publisher New Text. And I think what they mean, when they say, the idea in South Asia is like you don't just live by the terms lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. Let's say if they're often men with each other, they would call it fun or masti. If they're in Maya Sharma's beautiful book on what she calls lesbian lives in primarily working class and lower middle class families in Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh, she says, what are the words that women use for each other? Sakhi, Sathin, Saheli, Dost, and lesbian. So lesbian was just one of the many words that people were using. When Akshay is saying that, there is a plurality of idioms at work in people, the way people think of themselves in relation to sexualness, was that plurality captured? I think it was captured to the extent that different languages made it to the book. So, as of now, we have poems in Punjabi, in Malayalam, in Marathi, Nepali, Gujarati, Urdu, Hindi. So I think as far as the translation has been able to capture those languages, you will see some of that. But finally, the thing is, these poems will reach the reader in English translation. So it's also about the dance that the translator has done with that work.
I mean, it's a difficult job, frankly. They have another question, another very good question, which is they're wondering about the place of identity in the poems in this anthology, which was our original topic, actually, where we were discussing prior to the readings. Is what for you guys, how did identity define itself, or how did you wrap your minds around it while you were coming up with this anthology?
I think that's what each page in this book is trying to do. I think that's what this entire exercise has been about. Because all of them are through different lenses. Like Akhil said, we have more than one poems about haircuts and what part of you and what part of your life or what part of your relationship with other people are you drawing that sense of identity, that's been explored beautifully, and that's what I think was also humbling, or like I was saying, overwhelming also, to understand there are so many ways which are beyond these words, beyond these nouns that we are talking about, sort of under the umbrella of the word queer. But that's what each of it is doing, and there are multiple poems about relationship with your parents, and I think that's sort of there in the background. That's something a lot of us deal with haircuts, with cooking with partners. All of these different things are there, and I think it's identity is not just about you, but a lot more. And I think that's what a lot of films are doing in the book. So it's become more than just how I think about me. And I think it's about how I imagine, what do I struggle with, what would I want, lots of dream poems, lots of fantasies, all of these things. We even have one poem which is a couple poem. So identity is sort of in that strange sense also, becoming this poem in two people. So lots of different things.
I think one.
And also just to go back to what Akshay asked before that,
No, please go on.
Is that and I think in translating some idioms, one or two poems also slipped, and I think we couldn't translate. Like there's one called Laga Jockey Mein Tag, and there was no way we could translate it in English. So that one has gone as is, because just translating in English is going to lose what it was about. So I don't think all idioms, if I'm stretching what idioms could be, referred to here, some of them have escaped. Some words we've left through. Some couldn't be translated completely, so we had to leave the words out. So we were constantly struggling, and Akhil translates a lot himself, and me also, when I did a point of view to understand what translation can mean, was a very beautiful exercise. I think it just opened up new ways of looking at things to me.
One of the things I wanted, if Santa is still here, I wanted to ask her one thing. I just want to say something and then bring in Santa.
And Anita's back as well.
There is, Akshay, to be honest, identity is both like the absolute core of this volume, but it's also completely hollowed out in the volume. There is a way in which you sort of, all the poems are satellites around this one particular thing, but we don't know whether the satellites are moving towards this thing called identity or whether they're moving away from it.
I think you put that pretty well. I was thinking the same thing. Is that what when you read this the entire anthology together, what actually happens is it unravels the idea of an identity. It makes it a specific individual experience for every single person, which is something we often forget. In the idea in this rush in the queer community, I think in any community really. I mean, in this rush to sort of identify with someone or just be part of sort of a safe in numbers kind of group, you forget that every experience, even if it's shared, is rather unique to yourself and how you react to it. I enjoy that part.
Santa, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Santa, I wanted to ask you one thing. I remember, right in the beginning when we had a conversation, I remember getting that email from you, and I think that's about the importance of identity as well, where you said that, often what happens with folks is that they mistranslate Nupi Manvi. And you were very adamant that, this is the way to translate it. So I was just thinking, if you could speak about that, because what I really appreciated was you're like, no, this is the way it has to be, and make sure that in every forum, this protocol is followed. So I was just thinking, what has your been experience about translation and mistranslation of this phrase? And
actually, this is very important for me because apart from my trans identity, Nupi Manbi identity, my Nupi Manbi identity cannot be segregated from my socio-cultural political realities. I'm very closely associated with this, the food, the peoples, the society around me. If I segregate from all this reality, then I will be left alone, and then it also will really affect to my political, development. So this is how, it also gives opportunity to the peoples, the reality of the peoples who live in the periphery. So because peoples, we are always focusing on playing with the games of minority and majority. So this is a time where we also recognize the existence of the people in the periphery who we consider as as minority. So in order to acknowledge their existence, we also need to bring out the realities that is associated with this community. So that's why Nupi Manbi identity I'm very adamant about this Nupi Manbi identity, and am very affirmative about this Nupi Manbi identity, because Nupi Manbi identity is not only about the trans identity, but it is also about the realities that's connected with Manipur. For example, like in my second poem, the second Nupi Manbi Thabal, there is a phrase, there is a line there, apomba thambal na amuba khuimu da tongba, which, like this lyrical interpretation would we find very difficult in English. Okay, because this is very lyrical, and then if we translate in English by somehow also, I don't think the English translation could able to reach the beauty of this line. So there are certain things which we need to maintain the beauty of the beauty and the reality of the different culture, different peoples, different identity. So that's why I wish to, stand for Nupi Manbi, and I wish people also recognize Nupi Manbi as an identity among the queer people.
And I think that's also a response to what Akshay is also curious about, that identity in some contexts and some fields and just has to actually be held on to, because it still has that resistive potential. It's still because it is often mistranslated, it is often shortchanged, and I think so. That's what Santa told us: that do it like this. And whereas in some other contexts, some other identities, when they become constraints, you also let them go. So I think that's the answer to that curiosity.
John, so does anyone else have any more questions? I think we have maybe just 5 minutes left. And Akhil and Aditi want to announce some NGOs, which we would really appreciate if you looked up and contributed to as well.
No, in fact, what we had shared on the chat window, I don't know whether folks can see that. There are 2 public comments earlier on in the chat. So what I'll do is again I'll share. So we just shared 2 fundraise appeals. One is actually something which was put out by Santa, which is enable young kids in Manipur access online education. And the second one is actually put up by Sumidas, who is working during the lockdown for food and other necessities, like relief work during the lockdown with trans communities in West Bengal. So we have already put up, if you scroll up, but if you can't find it, then later on I'll put the fundraiser appeals again. So it would be great if people have a look, and if they have a look and contribute.
Just to clear this up, guys, we had actually done a little test call earlier, and that's
I'll put those links again. So that's it, because this book is coming at a strangest of times. Like, on the one hand, we Harper Collins is saying, mark the entry of this book, and there is all the protocols and rituals attending to when a book comes out, and on the other hand, the world is crumbling. And on the other hand, there are folks who are very well of the communities that this book seeks to speak of, who are struggling with various facets of life. So there is a way in which both of these situations have to be kept together, rather than one denied to the other. So what I'll do right away is I'll put that on the chat window.
And I will also add it to IGTV and YouTube when it's shared. When this is shared later as well, guys. But check it out. I mean, it's always good to contribute to a good cause and sort of help everyone out. Like Akhil said, the world is crumbling. Is there any more questions that anyone has? We have maybe just 2 minutes left before Zoom cuts us off.
I'm trying to put it on public. It's going only to Avantika.
I know I'm sending it out.
Otherwise, I think everybody can reach out to us. So you can reach out to us on social media as well, and we'll link you to both these campaigns.
And one of the things that will happen, look out at the Harper Collins social media handles, because a lot more contributors will actually share their work. In the coming, there is Anish Gawande's translation of Ramchandra Srinivas Siras's Marathi poem. There is Dhiren Borisa's wonderful, wonderful poem, Should I Mourn a Little Longer? There is Charles's poem. There are a bunch of things that there is amazing translation by Somrita Urni Ganguly of Ifti Naseem's, Pakistani diasporic Urdu poet. Amazing translation of their poem on Mere Baba. So, our contributors are quite a heady, amazing lot. So, just make space for their work in your lives, and hopefully you'll appreciate what this book has enabled to do in a small manner.
Okay, guys, we're out of time, but I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. Thank you, Aditi. Thank you, Akhil. Thank you, Samta. Thank you, Zulfikar. Thank you, Harper. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
And thank you for organizing this as well.
I just clicked a button. If anybody wants to know more, please get in touch with Akhil or Aditi. Aditi is curious_wine on Instagram, and Akhil is katyal.akhil. I am the Ladies Compartment, as you guys know. We will be resharing this. If you want to forward it to friends who might have missed it, or were sleeping because of the time difference, you can share this from the Ladies Compartment's YouTube, and you can also share it from our IGTV stories. We release this on the 13th. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Sorry for the jokes, Akhil.
Not at all, please. We could do with more. Thank you, Avantika. Thank you, Santa. And everyone.
See you guys.
I know some other contributors also joined, so some other contributors also joined. So hi to them, and now bye to them. Hopefully,
bye. Finally, I have opportunity to see Nikhil in person.
Oh,
Akhil in person. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye, guys. See you all.
Okay, I'm cutting the call. Yeah.